I think if you go to preach the gospel of wanting to tell people to wash their hands using clean water, I think you know at what extent you can go with that. Now, multidimensional poverty. We've seen how disruptive COVID has been on access to education. We're still grappling with opening the schools. We've not, the health system has been, between the time of the lockdown, we saw how many people who could not access the health services. How many mothers really lost their lives and could not go to labor and so on. So we saw that part of it. Now, when you ask me what strategy, number one, with agriculture, whatever affects agriculture should be addressed. We have no options with that. We should be able to, because agriculture has been holding and has been looked, I think you've been hearing the president talking about the real economy, the stable economy. The sectors that have been most stable and really resilient have been agriculture. And so the focus, we should move resources, capital, labor, find means of moving resources into the development of agriculture.
Dr. Mboa, you may or may not know we are so excited about oil. Now you want to move us away from that excitement to agriculture?
Well,
we have invested significantly in that excitement.
Okay, that excitement. You've seen what happened in international when the aviation industry was really. We're looking at resilience here, and we're talking about the president has always emphasized the real economy, which sectors have been resilient. We've seen tourism gone down. We realize we can't depend on. So we said, okay, with farming, and then if we add value onto what we have. And cut down on what we are importing, we look inward, we can be able to survive.
So whatever is affecting agriculture, if there was any time to address it, it is now.
It's now.
Absolutely.
It's now. We've seen that is the way we could.
We have been saying that money that is supposed to boost agriculture is in infrastructure, that's where it is. Are you saying that conversation now has to change, that we have to be direct in investing in agriculture, not hiding its money in other things?
That's precisely. We've seen how important, how resilient agriculture is with an onset of a pandemic like this. Now, you just have a look at the good roads. How did the good roads help us during the pandemic? We realized we needed more of social services than the good roads, because we apart from letting the borders open to allow some of the essential goods coming in, but the roads became a little bit. We were wondering how we can deal with this pandemic with the type of social services we have, health facilities, and then we've seen now we are grappling. We have been tested to the core. Can we really? Can the schools really contend with the SOPs?
Okay, actually,
so that is where we need to some of the strategies. Now we need to balance. We have to be cautious in balancing the development of hard infrastructure with obviously social services. In this, since we don't know when this the challenge of COVID is going to unwind.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Mboa. Did you have a point? I want to bring in Dr. Mugasi here. You're talking about the good roads. It got to a point where we now knew that the good roads are going to become a vehicle for COVID to get to us. So we said, everybody get off them. And there was a time when we didn't want actually anyone on the roads. Dr. Mugasi, if you may, to what extent do you think agriculture in Uganda is helping and could help more in eradicating poverty in this country? Because we have that target of 2030, and now COVID-19 hasn't held. But to what extent, adding on to what he said and what she said?
Yeah, thank you, Samson Kasumba and colleagues, Dr. Mboa and Honorable Sechitoreko. Agriculture, for sure, is the vehicle that is going to change the fortunes of our people in Uganda.
How?
But because before you come to Uganda, I want to discuss this looking at the theme. The theme is working together. I see this as a call for joint action at the global level, at the continental level, then at the national level. At the global level, we have the SDGs, where at the global level we have global aspirations of fighting poverty. And I'm excited that Uganda has done extremely well by beating the target of 2025. We have been able to reduce our poverty levels by 50%, and mainly driven by agriculture.
Okay.
So that's the first signal, the first indication that agriculture indeed can reduce poverty. We have been able to reduce poverty in Uganda by 50%, mainly through agriculture.
And on that, there are people like myself and a few others listening to you saying poverty has been halved and they don't feel it. So can you explain what that means, that we have been able to reduce poverty, when some people are saying, what is he saying? I used to eat 3 meals before COVID. Now we are eating 2 or 1 and a quarter.
Yeah, of course, when you say we have reduced poverty by 50%, it means that you have another 50% who are still in poverty.
Okay.
And indeed, we shouldn't say we are comfortable at that level. Our objective is to make sure that we eradicate poverty. And eradicating poverty does not mean you leave others have gone over the line, others remain behind. It means everybody must be above the poverty line. Yeah. So when you come to the continental level, the African Union has been making several undertakings, which I strongly think if these undertakings had been followed, if these undertakings had been adhered to, most of the countries in Africa would have completely eradicated poverty. For example, we have the CADAP undertakings. Yeah. And Honorable Historical, you were there at that time in the African Union and the FAO. This is the comprehensive agriculture, Africa Agriculture Development Program of the African Union. It is a fantastic document with high-level aspirations, which sometimes we set aside and we end up doing other things. We have the Maputo Declaration. Yeah. Followed by
we have sung that declaration, yes, the Maputo Declaration.
And then followed by the Malabo Declaration. These declarations were agreed upon carefully by our governments in Africa. And if I recall, the Malabo Declaration requires governments in Africa to fund agriculture at a level of 10% of the national expenditure.
Yes.
And if we had adhered to that level of funding, Samson Kasumba wanted to tell you that in Uganda, we wouldn't be talking about 50% reduction of poverty. We would be talking of 80, 90. So I think there we have let ourselves down by not adequately funding agriculture.
Okay.
If you come to the national level here, because that's how I want to bring the discussion. At the national level, I think we are doing well. We have tried. Because last financial year, agriculture grew by 5.4%. 5.4%, despite the funding we received of 3%. So I think at the national level, agriculture is in the right direction. And no wonder, for us in COVID, we never felt serious consequences, especially with regard to access to food. So I think agriculture, if I'm to answer your question, agriculture has the capacity of transforming our economies. Now, let me give you some figures, Samson. Africa sits on 60% of the total arable land of the whole world.
60%
Yes.
of the total
Yes.
arable land
Of the
is on a continent struggling with poverty.
Africa. We have 60% of the total arable land of the world.
Now let's put it this way.
Listen.
For context, let's put it this way.
Yes.
That a continent struggling with poverty
Yes.
has 60%
Yes.
of the world's arable land.
Arable land.
And then I'll
Africa.
ask, how so?
Yeah, but listen to this. Despite that 60% arable land being in Africa, Africa only accounts for 4% of the international agricultural trade. Only 4%.
What happens?
And the problem is we mainly export raw materials. First of all, we have not maximized production per acre. Therefore, we cannot achieve optimal yields. And even the little produce we produce, we export raw materials mainly. And as a result, we are only, controlling 4% of the international agricultural trade.
Who controls the rest?
I mean, it's
Those who
Russia,
have 4%,
it's
40%.
Latin America, it's, So first of all, we need to see how does Africa, claim more a bigger place in international trade of agriculture.
At least 10%.
Absolutely. So that's why I was saying, at a continental level, we need to work together as Africa to see how do we increase production and productivity. So that we can, but beyond that, also add value. For example, if you look at coffee, I think, Africa has a big place in terms of coffee production. If you look at Uganda, if you look at Ethiopia. But in terms of the global value chains and how much we gain out of this coffee, a Starbucks restaurant on a high street in London makes more money, employs more people than your average farm here in Uganda, which produces the coffee.
Why don't the coffee farmers determine that business?
Yeah.
Because their product is the business.
Absolutely. But now, as a government, steps are being taken to make sure that we begin to add value to our products.
Okay.
For example, tea, coffee, cotton, if we can add value here. And that brings me to the next question. How do we make sure that we add value?
The president has been singing that value.
Absolutely. And that's why now we see, indeed, we like to thank the president and the government, because now money has been put in UDB. UDB, so that...
you want the farmers to go to UDB?
So that farmers, the private sector, can borrow money and add value.
Farmers in UDB?
No, I mean...
Farmers in UDB?
No, I mean the private sector. The private sector, those who are able, add value to our coffee so that we can have the Starbucks here. We can start to serve.
Dr. Mugasi,
eating too to claim a bigger margin.
with the young people will call it the UDB jazz. I am uncomfortable with that. Isn't it about time we started thinking cooperatives again?
That's fantastic, because cooperatives, if you look at Europe, the bulk of the wines marketed in Europe are produced and manufactured by cooperatives. Yeah. Wines and the dairy products. Yeah. Those value chains, right from production up to the shelf, are in the hands of cooperatives. So, Samson, you are right that for us, the future now, one of the strategies is strengthen our cooperatives, to make sure they take charge of the entire value chains. Okay. But probably what I want to add here is financing and strengthening SMEs in agriculture. Because whereas we want to think big, if we can strengthen SMEs, small to medium enterprise in agriculture, they can be a big game changer, first of all in creating employment, but also in improving household incomes. Okay. Yesterday, a young man visited me in my office, a young man who came from Luwero. He's running an SME and is producing animal feeds for poultry and pigs. This young man is employing 70 youth. So imagine if we had such, 100 of such in each district, we would be able to create 1 million jobs. So I think the strategy now really is to, how can we support SMEs in the agriculture sector? Okay. And now, moving forward in NADS, we want to focus on supporting SMEs in agriculture, equip them, build their capacity to add value, and create jobs, especially for the youth.
Okay. Thank you very much. And it's quite interesting, especially if you just joined us, you may want this statistic, getting tongue twisted there, that Africa has 60% of the world's arable land. That's land available for agriculture. But we only control 4% of the food business of the world. Think about it. And then let me know why you want to sell land and come on a border. Do business on a border. What are you doing there? But we'll get to that later. Let me just bring you back in, Dr. Mboa here. We have had floods, and they continue. Desert locusts visited, then they went, then they visited again. We don't know whether they will come back again. Public health challenges, climate change continues to be a problem. How can countries like ours make progress in achieving social and environmental justice? And maybe, if you may, where's the role of science here?
You may, if you are talking about social and environmental justice in perspective of eradicating poverty, I think it is high time we started taming the environment, investing in technologies that are the green technologies, greenhouses. The environment is really, can wreak havoc in this economy. The poverty that we are seeing that surged during the time of, from 19 to 21 that we are seeing today, it was just a change, disruption in the weather that caused that was responsible for that. And then if you get into growth in agriculture, reduces immensely poverty in this country. So should there be any disruptions that relate to environment, that relate to floods, those shocks that disrupt the livelihoods of people who are living in agriculture, then we have a big challenge there. But nevertheless, there are technologies that we can put in place that could be able to make sure that we reduce some of those vulnerabilities. Now, I'm glad that the ministry has come up big time to promote irrigation. We are now at least responding to the vagaries of climate change. I think there we will have some level of control. There are things that I think right now, the floods, issues of floods, and then you bring in to what extent that is disrupting social justice in the country. And I know people have been displaced, and people have been forced to leave their ancestral places and so on because of that. But those are some of the things that are really, eradicating them is almost very difficult. But we can help out the people who are, interventions from the side of the public sector and government can come in to help out on reducing the impact of such vulnerabilities.
Okay, very interesting. When I was growing up, there was, because I've grown up and lived in Buganda here, there was a saying that Oli Dengo Mulimi. Now that saying is gone. These days they say Oli Dengo Muliwenguzi. Because being a farmer was such a big deal. Then I went and was lucky in my attempt to fight poverty, and went and flown to places across the world where you meet a person and in their profession, in the profession section of their passport, it says farmer, and they are very proudly farmers because it's not a side thing, it's not a side hustle. Because in Africa you have side hustle, cattle farmer. Main hustle, president. But there are ways, other places where main hustle, farmer, side hustle, politician. How do we bring agriculture to the place, Honorable Secretary, where it becomes resilient to shocks like we're experiencing? Because now we've come to the place to understand that if there's anything that can sustain us, it's going to be agriculture. Because even when we closed everything, I didn't hear the government saying, you know what, please suspend eating because of COVID.
Yeah, if Uganda is take away anything out of COVID, it should be agriculture. We have spent the last 10 years also arguing that every Ugandan child should grow up learning and practicing agriculture. Because if 80% of the population is going to end up in agriculture, and you say your education is preparing them for the future, who is missing it? Is it the children, or is it the school? Is it the curriculum? You know, of late I've been thinking about school dropouts, and I have come to a conclusion, which may be sad, but it looks like these children know something we don't know. But what we are teaching them is not what they need. So why waste your time? Why waste your puberty, your energetic years learning the source of the Nile and the height of Mount Renzori, when at the end of the day you are going to be a lemon vendor? You may as well learn about lemons, how to pack them, where they are produced, why they don't grow in swamps, and so on and so forth. So first and foremost, after this COVID, I suggest that means of education, together with agriculture, sit together and see how they can operationalize teaching Ugandan children about the real economy. Because the president talked about the real economy.
Okay.
The real economy for Uganda is agriculture.
So you're basically saying that let's take stock.
Yes.
How many women are in markets vending things? Then don't bother our girls with stuff. Teach them how to succeed in market vending.
Exactly. You may as well teach them how to calculate, how to add, how to, the principle, the interest. Because I remember one time I was watching tele, and one lady who I think studied up to senior 2 owns one of the biggest hotels in this republic. But she said when she goes to the bank to borrow, she tells them not to tell her that your interest rate will be 20% per year. That zogere ngabwe ziri, when you give me 1 million, how much do I pay back? If I'm going to pay 1.2 million, say that. Instead of 20%. So let us teach these children what is relevant to them. Samson, one of the things which is bothering everybody now is that Ugandans do not have insurance. We are trying to get farmers to insure their farms. But they are not taking, even if government has put in money. Reason, when you were in school, Samson, did you at any one time ever learn about insurance?
No.
If you did, maybe you are one of those boys who was reading a dictionary for big words, then you came across insurance. So now you become an adult, you are a farmer, and I come and I say, yeah, you had better insure these pigs. What is insurance? What if they don't die? And so on. But if we had inculcated this into these children, what is agribusiness? What is agriculture? Agriculture is a business. Can you really become rich? Yes. I come from Butembe, where one of the richest men in the Republic of Uganda is from. That's Madivani, and his money is from agriculture. We don't learn about those. We go and, especially when you hear Ugandans talking, they're talking about this footballer and the other. Why can't we talk about Ugandans who have made it through what you can also make it?
It's actually interesting when you talk about it, that Madivani, one of the richest men in Uganda, is making money from agriculture.
Yeah.
Why are we teaching children something else? If one of the richest in Uganda is in agriculture, Mukwano is also in agriculture. And if you look at what he does, most of it also is a byproduct of agricultural products.
Exactly.
Why aren't we telling these stories enough?
Now, about stories. Right now, the story that is bothering me is what Mr. Mugasia was talking about, adding value. First of all, we have to understand, if you roast and crush and grind the coffee here, it loses its aroma. But the people in leadership know that if the farmer can skip the middleman and actually deal with the roaster in Germany or in the US, you immediately more than double your money. And we know that it can be done. What is supposed to be done? All that is supposed to be done is for UCDA, through with MAIF, to make sure that Mr. Patel in London is connected to Mr. Mugasi in Kampala, so that when his coffee leaves here, it is actually destined for this roaster. Now, most of the people who are dealing with coffee here have nothing whatever to do with roasting or value or whatever. They're just middlemen.
They're called investors.
Exactly. Now, those wonderful investors are being promoted by our leaders. So, what should be done? I said poverty is in the mind. Let us erase poverty from our leadership, our parliamentarians.
But can't the farmers come together, the coffee farmers themselves, or the cotton farmers, or those who poultry farmers, or whoever they are, make an organization themselves and say, we don't want no middleman here. We are going to look for that German and deal with him directly? Or is it poverty that tells us we can't come together?
They can.
We all have individually to work with the same middleman.
They can. But for as long as you have a government which thinks whenever they go abroad, I feel like I'm even shivering as I talk about this. The leadership of Uganda goes to the desert where there is nothing but people. And you tell them, oh, you see, we have got this rain which rains every day and the sun shines every day and everything. Can you come and invest? Good God, who does that? That is why the Chinese are now going even in the rural areas. The Indians who had been mercifully sent away by Mr. Amin are now all back. The Arabs are now coming. Ugandans. Nobody from outside is going to work on your poverty for you. As I said, poverty is in your head. If we, the leaders, can work with these people, and actually, like I said, through education, get them to wake up, that is one. Two, you Ugandan, if you can know that you cannot do it alone, like Samson is suggesting, work with others, meaning if there is a nuclear farm in your area, which is being promoted by Ministry of Agriculture, please join it. Don't continue telling us, oh, that is what killed cooperatives. That is in the past, and we are not going to live there. If there is a lead farm which promises to give you extension services, and after you have produced, they will pick up what you are producing and market it for you at a guaranteed price, by all means, please join them. If, on the other hand, you are one of the few lucky people, like if you are from Bugisu, where Bugisu Cooperative Union has weathered all the challenges, by all means, support your cooperative, because that is the only sure route out of poverty. Okay. These occasional Bazungus who come to buy your coffee are occasional, as I have said, and they are not there to get you out of poverty, but to keep you exactly where you are.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Victoria Sechitoreko here. I hope you're picking a leaf there. I've been always talking about going to agriculture, but I think beginning next year, I might go to that fish farm and actually set it off.
Oh, nice.
And I will certainly let you know what, because I actually have land that has a stream. So there's absolutely no reason why I should be doing fish farming. But I think I might need a gunman because they steal those fish.
Don't worry, we shall talk about that.
We will talk about that with Honorable Sechitoreko.
Yeah.
Dr. Mugasi, let's come back to you now. What can the agricultural sector in Uganda do to be more resilient and to the shocks? We are talking floods, desert locust, public health challenges like we have been going through that are currently making this very complicated. And you could also as well address on the fact of climate risk insurance in Uganda.
Yeah, thank you, Samson. Yeah, of course, agriculture is a highly risky business. And when you talk of climate change these days, the situation is even worse. And that's why now, at the national level, the government has come up with the National Agriculture Insurance Scheme. And I suppose that's the question you wanted us to discuss. Insuring agriculture. Now, agriculture insurance is still in early stages in Uganda. Not many people understand it, not even the farmers understand it. So that's why government has come in to drive it, but also working with the private sector. Now, the government, actually the Ministry of Finance, is working with insurance players to make sure that funds are available for insurance in agriculture. That's why we have this National Agriculture Insurance Scheme. Now, under that scheme, I have some figures here which I got from the Insurance Regulatory Authority. Actually, you realize the numbers are increasing of farmers who are going for this insurance scheme. For example, in 2016, only 5,000 farmers insured their farms. Can you believe? Look at the whole country.
Millions.
Only 5,000 farmers insured their farms. In 2017, there was a big leap, and we had 45,000 farmers insuring their farms. I think there was more
40,000.
Yeah,
yes.
so there was awareness, I suppose, about this scheme. We have a dip in 2018. Only 25,000 farmers insured their farms. So Now, last year, 2019, the figures we are getting here is that 54,000 farmers were able to insure their farms. Because I think the challenges of insurance here are both on the demand and supply side of the insurance. Now, on the demand side, the problem is that there is low awareness. Do you do some farming, Samson?
The story is not a very nice one. I entered into tomato farming.
Have you ever heard about...
Then the rains came, gave me more water than I wanted, and I was disorganized. So ever since I've been working on building a greenhouse, then I come back. So, if I had insurance...
Yes. So there's no awareness. People are not aware. People think you only insure vehicles, you insure buildings and health insurance. But I think Ugandan farmers out there should be informed and be given adequate information that there is agriculture insurance and you can insure your farm against any sort of hazard.
And to bring it down to the people that Honorable Secretary Code normally speaks about, who are watching, you're basically saying that I grow a tomato garden or Buga garden or Jovio garden, because these are the real people down there, or Nakati, then walk into an insurance firm and say, I want to insure the garden. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. You can insure your garden of maize, of potatoes, of
chicken,
livestock farm, chicken, and you're insured and you are safe. So the other challenge is that there is a lot of trust. Because people imagine, if I put there my money, is it worth it? Or rather than pay insurance, maybe I add another acre of tomatoes. So there's also a problem of poor understanding how it works. Because if you look at the premium, and also the premiums have proved to be very high. Somebody looks at the money. So I think the low awareness, lack of adequate information is pushing away farmers from insurance. But also on the supply side.
And the farmers fear to be told when they walk into this place that that Nakati is high risk. Therefore, you pay so much.
And last season I harvested. Even this season I should be able to harvest. So they forget that risk does not warn you. That's why it is risk. So on the supply side of things, you know, the insurance companies, the premiums are high. And farmers look at it and look at their balance sheet and look at the prices and they say, look, let me brave it and God will take me through. And also, there's a problem of low profitability. Also, the insurance companies have their own complaints. So we have problems both on the demand side of the insurance and the supply side. So
and where is government in all this? Just sitting by and watching?
No. That, as I said from the beginning, this scheme was started by the government of Uganda and spearheaded by the Minister of Finance. That's why it is called the National Agriculture Insurance Scheme.
Mugasi, government put in money. It is not like...
That's what I was looking for.
I don't know what you get out of the check.
So government has put in money, and this money is available for support, to leverage funds available with the...
Can I explain it?
Yes.
When you want to insure your pigs, government will pay 50% and you pay only 50%.
Absolutely.
But when you lose the pigs, you take 100%.
So it's...
Do farmers know this?
I think that's why I was saying, I think information is not available to the farmers.
Where is it locked up? In NADS? In MAIF? In Parliament? Why isn't this publicized?
I think we have the Insurance Regulatory Authority. Farmers can approach them.
Is it too busy?
Yes, can approach them. They're on plot 5. Legacy Towers. I'm not the PRO of IRA, but they are my neighbors. So farmers can come there and get information on agriculture insurance.
Or go to any insurance.
Or any insurance company. There are quite a number in Kampala here. This information is available.
Let me just do my job here as somebody very excited and passionate about communication. If you are in agriculture, the government of the Republic of Uganda has invested money in making sure that you don't lose, because the floods may come or diseases may come or something may happen. Somebody may come Like, I want to get into fish, and before you know it, they've just harvested all your fish and they've made away with money. Now, to shield you from all those losses, that's the function of insurance. So I don't know why you are involved in agriculture and you are not insuring when government has been kind enough. So go find an insurance company and insure the agriculture that you're doing.
Actually, Samson, to be clear, the government is putting 5 billion shillings per year for this insurance scheme. 5 billion shillings is available for this scheme.
And
we thank the
really
government
they are
of Uganda
delivering.
for that very, very kind gesture to farmers.
There. It is
Sorry, I'd also request them to come back to cooperatives. That's a conversation for another one. Many of Uganda's poorest and most vulnerable have livelihoods based on subsistence agriculture. That annoys the president. He wants to pull his hairs out, and he's talked about the 4 sectors, the 4-acre. And in the spirit of leaving no one behind in Uganda, what are the primary challenges that subsistence farmers in Uganda face?
A subsistence farmer is
Is no chance.
lacks almost everything. Nevertheless, there is a chance for that. We are saying,
Can you come out of poverty with it? Subsistence.
I think you need to break the echelons of being subsistence to commercialize to some extent, but you need to be handheld to get it. We've seen the record that we've had in interventions that have distributed inputs have yielded dividends. I'm sure the intervention by my colleague here,
It's exactly
Dr. Mugasi with nuts and the distribution of coffee seedlings. That's where we are getting to the 5 million.
You mean
bags.
these ones brought during the sunny season?
They are those ones that we lost some, no more. But we managed to, those who managed to get, to maintain the management of their gardens. That's why you are seeing now we have made it to 5 million bags in exports. Production is, I think the figures are 70 million bags right now. But I'm sure that was the intervention that will really, put away the constraint of lack of inputs. Then the other thing is we have really been urging for their subsistence, but they are very rational. They invest money where they will. If they invest in an enterprise, they are putting an eye on getting money, but the only problem is that they are operating at small scale. Now we are saying we need to transform that. We should look at a transformative way of looking at things. We've been talking about here, how do we get markets to work? And we are talking about in the agro-industrialization, you have to have, you've talked about cooperatives, but here we are talking about an integrated system where we have game changers who have a feel of what's happening in the market, and at the same time, who are giving direction to the small-scale farmers and aggregating what they are doing. That is what Madvan is doing to some extent, without growers. Now, how do we push that into other sectors? We've been conversing about coffee. What is the problem of Honorable Victoria Secretary has talked about deepening the participation in the value chain by farmers? Why shouldn't I sell the coffee that is graded? Why shouldn't I get the dividends of grading? Why should that be screamed off by an exporter?
Because we are meant to believe.
No. It's a simple machine that screens the coffee. If you come and you've got, a sizable percentage of screen 18, screen 15, different prices.
Yeah.
And that gives you a premium price. And we are talking about someone in an organized way. If we put in each sub-region a grading system, a grading machine that is grading and telling farmer now, your coffee you've brought is of low grade, so we are giving you this price. If you bring this grade, you'll earn this. So that farmer will be able to go and improve on the management, and will come back with a better grade of coffee.
Exactly.
So that is where we are going to root poverty out of this country.
Do you think, Dr. Mboa, that if the farmers were exporting directly, it would be easier for them to do this? But because the middleman comes and picks all the coffee, and because he makes so much money, he can take anything.
And he's happy to keep them at that level.
And so they don't know, in a sense, the implications of these grades. You think if they were the ones exporting directly, this would be easier to do? Is that your view?
What we're talking about is now, how do we get them to aggregate the small volumes they are producing to make sure that they benefit and they start expanding and intensifying?
So how do we lift them out of this subsistence agriculture? Because it's very important if we are to beat the 2030 deadline.
Yeah, I think we are talking about now value addition. We happen to come from the same counter with the Honorable Victoria Secretarial.
In Busoga.
In Busoga.
And now poverty for some reason.
Poverty is some
advanced neighbors.
Now the people have moved into growing sugarcane.
Okay.
Big time. And when you ask someone, why are you growing sugarcane? The first answer would be, because there is a market.
Yeah.
So there is a response
to the market.
To the market. The only now challenge is that we've reached excess capacity. Now we have the domestic market cannot absorb the volume of sugar that has been processed by the mills that are in Busoga. We have almost 5 of them.
So you are saying that if somebody the size of Starbucks had a coffee processing mill in Busoga, they will be growing coffee.
Immediately they will respond. Certainly. They will move out of they will break that yoke of subsistence.
Certainly.
And they will become commercial.
Honorable.
Yes, sir.
You're saying something to that.
If I'm going to talk about another crop. One of the crops we are talking about now is avocado. For the last 10 years, ever since I retired, I've been talking about avocado because I knew what the world was saying and what the world was eating. Now, suddenly, everybody has woken up and everybody I talk to is asking me where the avocado seedlings because there is a market.
People eat avocado in Europe.
Exactly. In the world.
Small like this.
In the world.
$2.
Yeah, in the world. So that is one. Two, during COVID, it was interesting because those countries which normally import food from Uganda kept flying here to pick up food. I don't know why the media did not pick that up, but Dubai...
Because we're political command center.
So the countries which are fed by Uganda continue to want food from here. What I would love for Ugandans to know is, one, the leadership should actually be spreading this information, and you, the media, should actually be telling everybody to continue, for example, producing your mangoes because the market is there, to continue producing sour soap. The Dubai had to come here and plead with Maif to say, even if COVID is there, for us, we want our sour soap, and don't tell us about how to fumigate. We shall fumigate the sour soap when it gets to Dubai.
Let me let some of our viewers know, when we talk about sour soap, it's your chitaferi.
Staferi.
Yes.
Until it became an issue, I did not know that Uganda was exporting staferi. So, what happens after that? Padel, one of the districts with a lot of staferi,
yes.
All of a sudden, the staferi picked up price. All of a sudden, Naguru, where most of us, where we are now, but where they sell the staferi, also started selling staferi because until recently it was not there. Once there is a market, I can assure you, but let me finish with this. This is why the Private Sector Foundation of Uganda has come up with a program called the Lead Farm Approach. Under the Lead Farm Approach, what happens is, if Samson, you have a farm, let's say, I'll give you a specific example. We work with Jessa. Jessa produces, produces some of the best yogurt, the best milk. In fact, whenever I go to the supermarkets, I watch people buying and they go for their
I've met it on an airline.
There you are. Now, what Jessa is doing is they are giving extension services to farmers around their area, around Usunju. Then they buy the quality milk which comes from those people. They sell it to Jessa, and Jessa makes that yogurt. Now, because these farmers have got an assured market, they have even improved the housing of their cattle, because for some reason Ugandans keep cattle in ramshackle houses. No, not anymore in Wakiso. Because they know that Jessa will not take your milk if you adulterate it even minimally. They are producing quality milk and they are getting high price. So for as long as the price is there, and that is why I agree with the theme for today, working together. So JESA work together with the subsistence farmers. They are no longer subsistence. They have gone commercial.
Very interesting views there. Working together to alleviate poverty using agriculture. I don't know how much you're picking out of this. Now that your job is being threatened, I think the conversation has come very timely. You want to go back and find out who is on your ancestral land and what are they doing on it in a country that is so fertile. What are they doing on it? You only go back to that ancestral land to dig around the grave saying, really? Can't you do more than that? That's, I don't know if you hear, that's what people do. But now agriculture is becoming, I mean, I did know that the Arabs came here to pick soursop.
Oh, they did.
Then why aren't people growing it now that the market is actually flying
They have
to come?
started.
But anyways, if I could come to you, Dr. Mboa, how can the UN, government, development partners, and persons, maybe even the private sector, better support vulnerable populations in the agriculture sector, specifically persons with disabilities and women, to ensure that no one is left behind?
Vulnerability, what causes vulnerability? And the people with the disability. I think we are looking at a humanitarian face to the development agenda here, making sure that all people with the limitations and vulnerabilities are involved in the development process. However, the UN, I don't know whether everyone knows where the people with the disabilities are. We have a record, we have the statistics, we have the database to put them at the forefront of development and to bring them up. So from a development point of view, we need information data that will help us to put in place social protection programs for people with disabilities. Because if you are vulnerable because you are a human being who has limitations, a human being is supported by 5 capitals. The human, I mean, if you have limitations on the human capital, the education, the skills, and then you don't have access to the physical capital, the natural capital, physical infrastructure, and so forth. You can't get into that. You don't have access to natural capital, which you can invest on, land. And then your capacity for social cohesion and so on is restricted. And you have limited access to finance. Then the vulnerability comes in. Become a vulnerable person. Now we are talking about getting people who have limitations on access to the 5 capitals that make a livelihood. And we see in this country that what makes women vulnerable are the access of one. You can find a woman who has, the human capital is built through education and skills. You become skillful and you can sell your faculty, the capacity that things you can do can be employable and so on. And then secondly, that you can skill a woman. But at the same time, if you skill a woman and the intervention lacks to connect that woman to the physical capital, to where they can utilize their skills, then you are not doing anything. I can give you an example. You go to, we drove to Padiel recently when we went to Padiel district and we found a vocational institute in Konakilaka, around Konakilaka, a beautiful institution built there. And then we were wondering, if a person the vulnerabilities are because of displaced, war and we are so many people, but they are telling us let's kill ourselves. But if I'm not connected to access to capital to utilize the skills I pick there, I will never change. Okay. The vulnerability will never go away. So we are saying in these youth livelihood programs, the moment you skill me, please connect me to the capital. It's me, the person who's going to qualify for the youth livelihood program, the money that is going around. So the connectivity integration in that will be able to help an ordinary woman who's vulnerable And then in any case, if you have to understand what people with the disability with the human face, those ones, we need to know where they are, and we need to know where to give them the social protection that they require. But the databases, so the UN, and we are talking about the UN, which we have to invest in making sure that we know all those people where they are, and we know how to target them and how to help them out. And for the other section of vulnerability to women, I think it's a matter of making sure that we integrate, we connect the dots on what is lacking in the capital base that is subjecting them to be vulnerable, and then we connect that, and then any interventions should be looking at an integrated, holistic. Give me the skills, but I'm the one who should be considered for the youth livelihood money, because that one is going to close the financial constraint I have. And then the other thing is that put me in a group where we can be able to participate in the market to start producing things that are required in the market. The skill, give me put me in a place where there is physical capital, infrastructure. In any case where, then create around me the social networks such that I can be able to participate effectively in leading a sustainable livelihood.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mbowe. Let me come to you, Dr. Mugasi. We now know that there is an intersection between poverty and hunger. And I think that intersection tends to lead towards gender. If we are talking about gender, it seems to be that the women face the brunt, seem to sit at that intersection. So if you're going to eradicate poverty and zero hunger, then there's got to be a way. You should have approaches that lift women and also give them resilience when hunger does strike. So in a sense, what is government and the UN doing to make sure that these women are lifted? And sometimes when they are lifted, again, they are also affected by living in Androcentric Africa, because when you lift a woman, then her suitors will be saying, mkazi mkaga.
Yeah, thank you, Samson. Before I get to that, allow me, I don't think we did good justice to your question about subsistence farming. How do we get out of subsistence farming?
Yes.
This is a question we have been grappling with over the years. And so what is subsistence farming? A subsistence farmer is one who produces only for consumption.
Produce it, and that's it. Now, there is a question that Honorable Secretary brought about, that poverty is in our minds. Now, I'm glad now the NDP 3 is talking about mindset change. There is a whole objective under the NDP 3 to deal with the question of mindset change. Now, people who just produce for eating sometimes don't even lack land. You will find that land is there. It is just idle. So I think now that the government has brought the question of addressing mindset, this is very, very fundamental. So that people, because sometimes people say, now I'm able to get food, I can have a meal, what else do I want? So I think now the question of mindset change is extremely important, so that we can in addition, because now, for example, the inputs we distribute as NADs. We have seen farmers who have taken advantage of these inputs, and they have transitioned from subsistence farming to commercial farmers. We are seeing them. And that is partly why we are seeing this performance of the sector, 5.4, as I said. But there are those farmers who receive these inputs. A farmer receives a heifer or many other things, and he says, in Ontario government, the government cow is
the government farmer was
the problem.
Requested for this cow. So the question of mindset is fundamental in the issue of dealing with poverty.
So who should do that? Is it the Member of Parliament? Is it the RDC? Because the president has really grappled with this. I've seen the president's heart at that place of lifting people out of subsistence farming.
Yes, yes.
He's written a book about the 4 sectors, asked people in the NRM to do it. Nobody's doing it. Where's the missing link?
I think it will start with our family, with the family. And I think one of the panelists here touched on it. It will start with the family, right from the family culture, so that children are brought up with the culture to work hard and make a contribution. So right from the family, the cultural upbringing, then the schools, then our leaders. Because we are sort of leaders. If you go in the district, you have the councillors, you have the councils, so you have, in terms of leadership, we have adequate leadership structures where information, where a message can be carried to the people.
Okay.
And
Can I just comment on that,
Yes.
who should do it?
Yes.
This mindset change should actually start at the top. One of the most, there is a certain media which normally asks what has made you happy this week and what has made you angry. But this month, what has made me extremely angry is when Uganda decided to import 50,000 kilograms of rice from Tanzania without paying tax. Tanzania has refused to buy our sugar. Why? First of all, who was starving in order to need rice? Who needed the rice? Who took the decision that one day that they should import? Because we are talking about import substitution. Before even the ink has dried, we are importing rice. So
But you may need to export your sugar to Tanzania.
Maybe if the country had something like bubu, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
The problem is we don't even have bubu.
hence the mindset change of the leadership.
Yeah. But if you're talking of East Africa integration, I think we need to be discussing that
At a later stage.
Exactly.
But for now,
so if you say Tanzania rice shouldn't come here,
because
then
they have refused
then
our sugar.
Your sugar should not go there.
They refused.
They refused it.
So that's
There was a time when somebody refused our milk.
Yes.
absolutely. So and it's something we need to discuss at another forum. If you're talking of East African integration,
Okay.
or indeed African integration, we are now talking about the Africa Free Trade Area. So we shouldn't be seeing these push and pull, don't bring this here, don't export this here. So I think we need to be discussing that. But coming back to your question of
How we lift women and persons with disability.
absolutely. And I think the government of Uganda has done a great job in terms of emancipating women. Because right from the girl child in school to representation in parliament and other organs, we see an effort by government to make the voice of the women heard. So first of all, do they have a voice? We see an increasing effort by the government to make sure that women are heard. Because if they don't have a voice, if they don't have a platform where to make their voice heard, then it becomes difficult. So on that front, I think government has scored highly in terms of bringing women to decision making. Because the
But
biggest
they're not deciding on when they're beaten and how hard they're beaten.
I'm coming to that because the biggest problem is that as long as you're not involved in decision making, at whatever level, then you are sidelined. If you go to the household level, there is the question of access to land, which is a big question. And I think it needs to be addressed because my colleague Dr. Mboa was talking about vulnerability. One of the highest, problems, one of the biggest problems of vulnerability is access to land. And beyond access to land, even accessing the proceeds from the land.
Yes.
Sometimes women will toil to produce these good tomatoes, to produce this good, beautiful banana. But when the proceeds come from the market,
The landowner shows up.
now the landowner, the big man shows up, and he must decide how much this money should be
Dr.
spent.
Mugasi, that's a question, and probably because we need to wrap up.
Yes.
Is in a legislature where there is a domination of men, do you think women will win and can win on access to land?
You see, access to land is a complex matter. It has cultural implications, it has legal implications. So, but we are seeing an improvement. We are seeing an improvement because, for example, most of the government programs, there are clear guidelines. When you are providing support, make sure that a minimum of 30% or so is given to women, youth, and people with disabilities. So in terms of government guidelines, in terms of government policy,
Okay.
we are trying to ensure, even us in NADS, our guidelines are very clear. If you are distributing seed, if you are distributing planting materials, we are very clear in terms of targeting. Women must be targeted.
Okay.
Youth must be targeted, and people with disabilities. And in terms of at reporting level annually, government agencies are assessed in terms of how far have you reached, in terms of reaching, in terms of supporting vulnerable groups like the youth, like women, and people with disability. So the policies are there, the guidelines are there to support these vulnerable groups. But the question is the implementation, the follow-up, and making sure that there is compliance.
Well, that's very interesting. When we started this conversation, I looked at the time and I thought, we have a lot of time. I don't know where that time has gone, but I have made a lot of good use for the time. One of the reasons why my heart is in agriculture is because I'm raising a daughter who wants to become a chef, and her business is certainly going to rely on your agriculture. But now it's not time for my daughter. It is time for her auntie, and her auntie is Elsie Atafa. Elsie Atafa is up there in the top echelons of the UNDP. Auntie Elsie, tell us what you thought about the conversation.
Well, thank you very much, Samson. Thank you very much, Samson, for this. I also wanted to say a very big thank you to the government of Uganda for its leadership in eradicating poverty and the partnership that we do have today to bring attention to the issues. It's been a very spirited debate. I was listening in very closely to the panelists and great conversations forward. Now, you said the conversation's about the auntie. No, actually, it's about your daughter who wants to be a chef. Because when we want to talk about leaving no one behind, these are the people we need to bring into the conversation from the beginning. I wanted to reflect on a few of the points that the panelists raised, and one has to do with the reorientation of the mind, which is very key. It is very important to look at the glass half full and not glass half empty. Now, that requires that we do a lot of work with the young people. I mean, in Uganda, our beautiful country, we have the second youngest population in Africa. Now, what does it mean when it comes to issues of agriculture? We need to empower them. We need to provide incentives. We need to provide opportunities. We need to help them address some of the structural challenges that they have. In that regard, I just wanted to also highlight a few of the things that we are doing in the UN family. We just recently launched a and thanks to the president of the country, His Excellency, President Yoweri Museveni, who launched a thing that we have a Youth for Business facility with the United Nations Development Program and Stanbic Uganda Holdings Limited. Other partners are joining, where we are looking at what is it that we can do to support young people in agriculture to be able to flourish, to do the value chains that we are talking about, to connect with one another. So if somebody is producing tomatoes, who can help process that tomatoes and who can help trade and export that tomato? So again, that is something that we are doing very strongly. And again, it's connected to the agenda that we are talking about today, eradicating poverty and leaving no one behind, particularly the youth, the vulnerable groups, the women, and the persons with disabilities. I also wanted to touch base on a few of the points that were raised around really focusing on integrated approaches when we are handling some of these things. I heard one of the panelists talk about potential shift from infrastructure to agriculture. It is true that we have to invest in the social sector, but it's also important to note that you also need the infrastructure to be able to even bring the products from the farm gate all the way to the market. So it's important to look at that integrated approach as we move forward. But thirdly, Samson, one of the things as we move forward and as we focus on the subject matter of today, which is eradicating poverty, we need to look at innovative approaches, how we do things differently. And I think if COVID has taught us anything, it has taught us to do things differently when it comes to digital innovations. So, for example, when you look at some of the things we have done, for the first time in the history of Jumia, here in Africa, we connected the vendor in Nakawa, in Bugolobi, in Kalewe, first time to the consumer online. Now, what does it mean from a poverty reduction point of view? For the first time, we're able to connect women, youth who are selling their tomatoes, the peppers, to the consumer online. We are creating businesses, we are reducing poverty, we are providing opportunities. These are some of the things that we need to look at now. When we want to expand it outside of the region, in the context of the Africa Free Trade Continental Area Agreement, for example, how do we connect the young person who is producing the coffee, the milk, to the young person in Ghana who does not even know that Uganda is producing milk? These are the kind of connections we can do using digital innovations. Now, 2 quick points as I conclude. And I think a number of people were talking about Starbucks and some of the, the coffee and food industry, colleagues, particularly outside the country. It's important for us to reflect on the strategic positioning of the country. What can we do differently? And I think that's a conversation we need to continue to have. Even when we come back to the conversations around the Africa Free Trade Continental Area Agreement, how do we position Uganda in a way that it's able to benefit from that agreement as a breadbasket in the region, as a country that is producing some of the best things in the world? I mean, the pineapples here are the finest I've ever eaten. But how do we do it differently in the way that the person in Nigeria, the person in other countries, I don't know, can be able to tap into this great resource that we have, whether they can use it for juice or something else? We need to start doing those connections and positioning the country in a strategic way, even for exports. 2 quick things again. I thought I said 2 things, but just pardon me, 2 things. I want to come back to the conversation around the subject of today, which is addressing environmental and social injustice, addressing social and environmental and social justice to reduce poverty. And 3 angles to it. I think when it comes to agriculture, yet again, we need to look at managing the trade-offs. You can still be promoting agriculture and impacting on wetlands. You can still be expanding on agriculture and impacting on the forest. And therefore, we need to look at the interlinkages in a way that as we promote one thing, you don't degrade the other one. We have seen huge wetland degradation in our country, which we need to manage, as well as forest degradation. But when it comes to environment, again, a dimension that was not discussed by the panelists is the energy dimension, which is a very important conversation that we should have. Energy is a key locomotive to addressing poverty in different ways. Now, how do we use, for example, our solar? How do we use our hydro? How do we use waste to energy in a way that benefits us when it even comes to social issues? You need, for example, the electricity to power your health institution. So there's a connection between energy and a connection between health. And those interlinkages, it's important because we need to address those to be able to achieve the whole, which is poverty eradication. On disaster risk reduction, I like the conversation around insurance, which is very key. And I think one of the institutions that could provide us with great leadership and which is already there established, doing some great work, is the National Emergency Coordination and Operations Center, NECOC. NECOC is really doing some fantastic work, having helped to avert some major natural disasters in the country. Now, how do we reinforce some of these internal capacities and institutions in the country to be able to invest in insurance in a way that tomorrow, if something happens, we can be able to tap into those resources to really support the farmers. And they're also doing a lot of great things by helping farmers to be able to predict some of the issues around weather and be able to support agriculture as a whole. Now, as we conclude, in the interest of time, I think the stars are aligned. Samson and panelists and colleagues who are viewing, the stars are aligned. We have a great opportunity with a National Development Plan 3, with the 18 programs that the government has developed. The government is now transitioning the NDP 3 to the Program Implementation Action Plans, which is the PIAPs. Now that is where we have to really nail down and to see how we can work together in a collective way to address and to reduce and to eradicate poverty eventually. In other words, whether through the environment program, the agriculture program, the oil and gas program, whatever mindset program, we need to be able to ensure that we integrate and mainstream the issues around poverty eradication in there. What is also important in terms of the stars aligning is that we are talking about the decade of action. We have 10 years to go before the completion of the SDGs 2030 agenda. It calls for us to work together The government just completed a voluntary national report, which was, there was a high-level political forum where it presented that. Now, we see great progress done by the country, but there's a lot more to be done. And I think that provides us an instrument for us to redouble our efforts to eradicate poverty. From us on the UN side, like I said, we have the UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, which has been launched by His Excellency the President. For us in UNDP, we have a new country program document. There's a lot that the momentum is there for us to build on. And I think 5 years, 10 years from now, we should be able to look back collectively and say we have left no one behind. That means focusing on the young people. That means focusing on the women. That means focusing on the elderly. That means focusing on the persons with disabilities. And I just want to conclude once again that on behalf of the United Nations system and UNDP and our colleagues FAO partnering together with us to bring advocacy and to really position the issues around poverty eradication. Today, I want to say thank you very much. It's been an exciting conversation. I think we should continue online, and we should also look for moments in future to sit down around the table and to work together to see how best we can then take forward the agenda of the country, the Vision 2040, and the implementation of the Third National Development. So thank you very much. And for your daughter who is watching, who wants to be a chef, I'm so excited about that. That is the future, and I like the dream. She should go for it.
Thank you very much, and I can tell you that that's very spirited. At a very young age of 56, I'll be moving around in Uganda where nobody is left behind and where poverty has been eradicated. Elsie Altafa is the resident representative of the United Nations Development Program in Uganda. Elsie, I'll tell you that for many young boys and young girls in Uganda, the only way they understand where you come from is by saying you come from the same country where Thomas Partey comes from. Then they will know that we are talking Ghana there. Antonio, talk to us about what you made of the conversation.
Thank you, Kasumba. What an interesting and rich discussion that clearly showed a way forward and how we can collectively work to address the challenge of eradicating poverty. I think we have to continue to work to break this paradox or break away of this contradiction of being poor on a continent that is so rich. Of course, the world have made substantial progress when it comes to reducing poverty. However, we still have a long way to go, and this decade really is a decade that collectively we agreed to end poverty and hunger, to also protect our planet, at the same time work to have the prosperity for all, which is the goal at a global level. I think as the theme proposed, we can do it. We have to do it together. And there are several dimensions that we have to work on. First, at the national level, at the continental level, and of course, at the global level. From the discussion, clearly, Uganda, the key word is transformation. Transformation of a key sector that, in my view, and also from the panel, that we got it clear that agriculture is indeed the gateway for the eradication of poverty in Uganda, but is also a sector that really can push Uganda to a middle income development status. But the transformation begins first with the mindset. I think some of the panelists clearly state this aspect. How can we change the mindset to ensure that Ugandans see in agriculture as a sector that is productive, not only for food security, but for income security that is critical also for the development of the economy. We have to transform the skills and the practice. Agronomic practice in agriculture is important. Doing it in a way that we're still protecting our environment, increasing the production for a sustainable intervention in agriculture. The challenge for transformation of agriculture is then how we increase the labor productivity, how we increase the land productivity, and how we increase the productivity of the capital. But I believe that this sector is rich. This sector really has the potential to transform the nation and to address the challenge of eradicating poverty. The call is for action, for us to collectively do our part to end poverty. And at the UN system, working together with our sister agencies, working together with the partners, but also with the national institution, I believe we definitely can do it. Of course, COVID-19 also presents us an opportunity to reset some of the things that we've been doing in the past. We have an opportunity to do things different because here we have seen some fragilities within our systems that needs to be addressed in a way that we create the opportunity for those that are already in the system, but also for the youth to be part of the agriculture system. But for this, we need investment, we need strong institutions, and I'm glad that the discussion that we are having in terms of how we de-risk agriculture is one way, important way forward. But let's do our part. At a global level, we are asking people to also share the message of ending poverty. So we put this high on the agenda, on the global agenda, to ensure that at the national level, but also at the global level, we are doing our part to end and to eradicate poverty. Thank you. Over to you.
Querido, muchas gracias. I would say there he is the resident in Uganda, top boss at the Food and Agriculture Organization. They say there that fiat panis, let there be bread. Let me just come back to the panel here for your concluding remarks. I don't know how much time we have, but I think we could squeeze in a minute and a half out there. Let's begin with you. You've been out there on the campaign trail. You know how to do this very quickly. Your concluding remarks here.
First of all, I'm very happy to be here. But secondly, really everything that is possible should be done to eradicate poverty. Uganda has no business being in the same line, same queue, same list of poor countries. And there is no way we are going to get out of there for as long as there are poor people in the country. Therefore, if you are in leadership and you have been greedy, you have been grabbing this and the other, I suggest that if you want to live in a middle-income country, you had better stop grabbing and start sharing and ensuring that together we get out of poverty.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mugasi. 30 seconds because we have another program coming on at 4.
Yeah, thank you, Samson Kasumba. I think moving forward, we have the National Development Plan 3, which has laid a very good foundation to build on what we have already done for us to achieve transformation. So I call upon all actors. Let us put our efforts together. With the NDP 3, we should be able to achieve the middle income status.
Dr. Mboa.
Agriculture is rich, can take us far in terms of inclusive growth. We can make easily $1.5 billion in exports in coffee.
Indeed.
Fisheries, easily 350 million. Right now, we've seen the intervention of the soldiers. We've seen stability there. Revenues are growing. Tea, we have the same resource with the Kenyans, 200,000 hectares potential. Tea, they are making it's a $1 billion US industry in Kenya, Uganda 80 million. So we can make it, agriculture can transform and can eradicate poverty in this country if we transform and we think strategically in a transformative way.
Thank you very much to the three of you, and to the viewers, thank you so much for getting involved. You cannot compare the size of land of Uganda and Israel. There's absolutely no comparison. No. But for some reason, the Israelis are making more money from agriculture than we are. And I'll tell you why. There's no magic there. It's not that they pray more than we pray. It's that their thinking is strategically different from yours and mine. You know what is big in Uganda is politics. We are big on that. The day when agriculture becomes half as big as this political season, we will get out of poverty. And you know, what I'm doing about it. The next time we have this conversation, this time next year, my fish farm will be up and running. And when you find me driving a much more expensive car, don't you tell anyone, Tinagenze Munyanja. No, it will be agriculture because it can take you out of poverty.
Indeed.
And it has been said that fiat panis, let there be bread. I'm going to get involved in that business of agriculture. And I can tell you, you'll see me moving around with the swagger, ngandi denga omulimi.
Has achieved remarkable results in eradicating poverty over the past decades, mainly driven by the agriculture sector. Vulnerability to poverty and lack of resilience still persists throughout the sector and the country. With the cases of COVID-19 on the rise, we must examine new ways to boost the economy and protect vulnerable communities. As we commemorate International Day for the Eradication of Poverty under the theme, Acting Together to Achieve Social and Environmental Justice for All, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, and the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, have organized a panel discussion to mark the day under the topic, Taking Stock of Contribution of the Agriculture Sector to Alleviating Poverty in Uganda. The debate will feature distinguished panelists from government, the United Nations Development System, civil society, private sector, and academia, with opening remarks from UNDP Resident Representative, Ms. Elsie Atafwa, and FAO Country Representative in Uganda, Mr. Antonio Querido, happening this Saturday, 17th of October 2020, starting at 2 p.m. live on NBS TV and streaming on UNDP, FAO, and NBS social media platforms. Be part of the International Day for Eradication of Poverty.
NBS. Always.
Access to information in this much heated time of elections. Many a time, citizens cry out foul play in regard to not knowing what to do with regard to where they are supposed to vote and who perhaps is supposed to give them this information. Today on the spot, we are putting people that have been players and actors in the electoral process thus far. We're asking ourselves whether policies in our country enable an active citizenry with information. Do they get the empowerment they need before they can engage with information? Perhaps it's about time we ask the question, who is to blame if we do not have the right access to information? And what information is there for us to know? To help us understand this, I will be your host, Jacob Eyeru, and I'll be with a panel that I'll now introduce to you. Many perhaps already known to you, but some you'll find to be new. The Honorable Member of Parliament, woman Member of Parliament representing Kasese District, and the immediate former leader of opposition in Parliament. Honorable Winnie Kiza, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
You perhaps might greet them to just let them know you're the one.
Hello, everyone. I'm Winnie Kiza, the Member of Parliament for Kasese District, and I'm glad that I'm here discussing the issues to do with election processes and management, and where you, the electorates, are supposed to be the key actors and possibly the things that you need to know about the election. Thank you.
Joining us to my right is a now famed political player. Dr. Charles Ayume is the NRM flag bearer after defeating the Honorable Minister Anite in Koboko Municipality. You're very welcome, sir. You may greet our viewers and our listeners.
Yes, good afternoon. viewers. As I was introduced by Jacob, my name is Dr. Charles Sayume. Feels very good to be in front of a panel and at the same time share the same bench with Honorable Winnie Kiza, whom we grew up watching and listening to. It's quite a privilege, Honorable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we will be talking a lot politically, but we need someone to create the context of necessity. And that will be none other than Mr. Gilbert Sendugwa, if I pronounce that right, the Executive Director of the African Freedom of Information Center. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
To start us off, we would like to know from Mr. Sendugwa. I'll cut that as time comes by. But we'll be talking to him about the context. Why is it important for us to have any access to information? Is it not enough that the candidates campaign and we listen? Perhaps there is something that we are missing and would like to know. If there is anything, we'd like to know how much information should we access, or is it always an open play when it comes to political display? You're very welcome, Mr. Sendugwa.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, viewers and listeners. When it comes to elections, access to information is very critical. How can people choose when they don't know what they are choosing? How can they participate in a process which they don't trust? So to be able to participate effectively, a citizen needs to know information on who the candidates are, what they stand for, what is their record, who is organizing elections, when elections are going to take place, where they are going to vote, how the counting is going to be. The counting now, as you know, given events of the past 2 weeks, has become so crucial that people need to know who is actually going to be counting. How are elections going to be transmitted from point A to point B? And what is going to take place between point A and point B? Is it something that people can trust? As it is in Uganda here, the issue of who counts is increasingly becoming an important issue. That it's not the vote that people have cast, but who counts, who transmits results. These questions are becoming very, very important. Now, access to information, let's say there are different players in electoral process. We have, for example, the Electoral Commission, which is mandated by law to organize free, transparent, and credible elections. Now, it seems from the minds of an ordinary Ugandan, this issue of trusting the EC has been a big challenge. We had a lot of rumors after the 2011 elections that results were switched. We couldn't believe what people were saying, because how can you switch votes? So I think our institution sought to test it and either confirm or dispel what was being said in the public. So in 2014, we made an information request for presidential elections, presidential and parliamentary elections for the whole country, polling station by polling station, so that we're able to conduct this independent analysis and give feedback to citizens. Unfortunately, we didn't get response contrary to what the law provides. That was in June. We followed up in August. Again, no response. So the Electoral Commission has a duty to inspire confidence by informing the electorate that they are up to the task, that they are discharging this duty on behalf of every individual citizen so that the outcome reflects the true will of the people. The second issue that is of public interest, in my view, is the fact that in every election, there are different stakeholders, different actors. You have Electoral Commission, you have security services, you have candidates, but you also have people who are candidates, but at the same time running public offices at the same time.
So, Mr. Sendugwa, this access to information of all these things, running public offices and so on, that goes around, to what extent does that lead us to a credible election, free and fair, if you like?
So the first thing is that if there is no public access to information, it is unlikely that there is going to be a credible and transparent and fair election.
Thank you.
And the question why information is important, you are putting someone in office who is going to decide on what public funds are collected, how public funds are going to be used, on what priorities. So it is important that information is made available.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. We will come back to you.
Thank you.
I'd like to pick it up with Honorable Woman MP. And I would like to start from the place that is most suited for you. You recently announced that you will not be running again for Parliament.
Yeah.
That means you're leaving us with only an experience of previous elections.
Yes.
Could you take us through how the access to information for voters in this country through those elections has impacted, one, the outcome, and two, the credibility of the election?
Thank you so much, moderator. I would like the viewers to know that, first of all, it's the responsibility of the Electoral Commission to do civic education. Electoral Commission must ensure that all voters who are going to participate in an electoral process know what they are supposed to do, their roles and responsibilities, including the candidates. They are actually supposed even to brief the candidates what is expected of them, either fair play, the rules of the game, the rules of engagement, and even assure the candidates that there will be areas, maybe sometimes they may not agree on certain things, but there is a conflict resolution mechanism in the electoral body. And that this electoral body is going to be really for everybody, so that all candidates know that they are playing from a level ground. The unfortunate bit is that the many elections that I have gone through, even when I have told Ugandans that I'm not seeking re-election again as a woman member of parliament for Kasese district, I've had so many elections that have gone through. I participated as a district councillor for 2 terms, as a member of the district council, and as a member of parliament, I have participated in several campaigns as an individual and for other colleagues. But I can tell you that the citizens have less information. The Electoral Commission has not, for example, played its role to the dot. There are those who are going to the election day or even in the line but do not know what to do. That is why you will see that even when candidates are going to line up, voters are lining up to go and vote, someone can still give them 1,000 and they switch from the person they were meant to vote to another person in whose favor they have received the 100. Because first of all, they don't even know the reason why they are voting.
Honorable, some will say they're just generally poor, that they need that 1,000 and whoever cares is the one that is giving.
You know, if they had enough information, the voters should have known that it's the responsibility of government to do certain things to get them out of poverty. But because they don't even know that they have a government in power which is supposed to sort some of their issues, they now look on to the candidate. A councillor will even be in position to tell the electorate that I'm going to do a road, I'm going to fix the issues of education, I'm going to do water. The voters can even vote someone on the basis of this person appearing on funerals. This one buries. Because they don't know exactly what their member of parliament is supposed to do or their councillor is supposed to do. This information, the voters should have been told by the Electoral Commission. Even some of the candidates that show up on election day, some of them do not even know the rules that govern them. They don't even know the laws that govern them. Even when there is this access to information law, even when there are these many laws governing elections, people don't know. So that is why even a candidate will wake up and they tell you, you know, we have brought you mosquito nets. You are supposed to go and vote the NRM.